So this one talk about specifically in assignment task 2. Okay, so the PowerPoint slide just walk you through some of the key point. Okay, and then I go to specific specification in the PDF document. Okay, let me try something here. See where I can have full screen. All right, so I talked about overall before. This is recaps. Okay, so this is assignment 2 and 3 are essentially identical. But they are focused on different different interface technology. So right now, half of your groups is Monday tutorial, and Tuesday tutorial is not on AR, augmented reality, Vuforia, and AR Core. And then the Wednesday one, Thursday, and Fridays are on the VR. So you are on Unity, things like that. Okay. So those two are, and then you flip over after next week. Okay. One thing to take note is that assignment 2 and 3 here, since assignment 2 is not going to do until the end of week 7, but note that week 7 tutorial, which is a week after this, next week, we are starting new material, which is in the opposite the other technology. Okay, so that means that that's what Ron sent out the notice on Milo on Friday that say, okay, this week we deal with your assignment 2, assessment task 2. Okay, not next week. Next week we move on to the next material. So therefore, you either get that help. If you still need help next week, you can either email Ron and I or come to our consultation. Okay, but we won't deal with that in the tutorial. Okay, so make sure that you use this week wisely. Get his feedback. So we don't have a driving content for this week. He will add some tip and something that might be interesting, but the core idea here to make sure that you have your assignment make up, okay, within this week, technical side anyway. So for internal learning outcomes, so they are focused on this one. Okay, assessment task 1, discuss the needs and the use of VR and virtual and mixed reality technology. So it depends on which assignment you're doing, whether VR or AR. So you talk about the technology, you talk about the application context, which I'll go into some details. And the third one, developing an interface application. This is what your hands-on component. But one thing that students in the past often meet is that in this IOO, it's also have these components, user-centric design approach, which is that what in lecture 3. That's what I'll try to highlight here in the next couple of slides. That it's not just about develop Unity program. It's also about try to identify why you develop certain way. Okay, why you develop your interactions or your virtual world or augmented AR application that way. So therefore, user-centric design approach will be the kind of center or part of that. So this is just give you a sense of the AT2 and assessment task 2 and 3. So 30% is on a discussion. Okay, and the developments and centric design, human user-centric design is 70%. Only when we move into the assessment task 4, when we start to do more on evaluation. Okay, so hopefully that makes sense. The reason we have to emphasize on the assessment task 2 a little bit on the 70% because in the past, the student doesn't really learn about the user-centric component up until all the way to the final exam. Okay, group assignments is also hard. Oftentimes it's hard to be able to tell whether individual learn or not. But in the final exam, I can tell you half of the student, if not more, actually not quite get that concept. Okay, so that's a problematic for the final exam. Okay, I'm trying to make sure that assignment 2 and 3 address that firmly. So as I said before, the assignment here addressed based on the design, your current allocation of your AR or VR groups. Okay, so you will see assessment tasks in the submission box. There are 2 of them, so make sure that you work on the correct one. Okay, the one that you're being trained with. Okay, unfortunately, we have oversized in Thursday session that I pointed out on my low message before. Thursday now has about 20 to 25, up to 25. Right now, I cannot, as I mentioned before, I cannot sanction the move officially. However, we also recognize that your training or your tutorial had been in that session. So if your session come from early in the week, your allocate session come from early in the week, you will have no chance of doing that tutorial assignment. So you just pick the one that your tutorial, the one that you attend, okay, and you just pick that. Okay, so if you're on Thursday, you have to pick the VR, no matter whether the original tutorial allocation is. Okay, so that just make it simple there. But we still have an eye lookout on for Thursday. It'll look a little overcrowded. Okay, so if you have a chance, yeah, you can avoid the Thursday. For those who not been officially allocated to it, I suggest you do so, so you get more time on the spot there with the tutorial, with tutor. All right, so for the option, I think I talked about this before a couple of weeks ago, Vuforia with webcam, and then for the AR groups, so you have Vuforia with webcam, sorry, and then you can use a webcam that you have, I think Ron will have talk about this, or if you have Android phone that you can deploy. For those of you who actually work on PC, doesn't have webcam, you can come up and check out the device. Those webcam and mobile phone is first come first serve. We do have a number of them, but not in a major amount. We have 4 webcam, we have 8 phones, so not going to be many of them. For Microsoft HoloLens, I already told in the practical sessions, it's a bit difficult. And only for people who are actually familiar that had come to practical. So far I have 1 student signed up, so that one will be, you will check out that one. But for those who want to develop things in HoloLens, our basic routine tutorial weekly would not cover that. Okay, you're gonna have to come and contact me so we can work together. Okay. And for VR groups, okay, so this is for the later from Wednesday onward tutorial. So this one, if you chose not to use the device, okay, so then you can just use Unity, what you develop the virtual environments in there, and then submit. And for those of you who, and also I left one Oculus Rift S, which is a full version of the headset, but you need the computer to run them. So make sure that you contact me before and tell me that you actually have the spec to run before you take it home and realize you can't use it. Okay. So hopefully that's clear. Okay. So you should have a little bit of fun on that one. Okay. So now next couple of slides here, I'll talk quickly about human computer design process. This is, you might have missed this. This is in a record in week 3 lecture. I look at analytics, and not many of you have looked at that slide or listened to my lecture. Those happen to be key, okay, for this for most of the semester here. So make sure you go visit that. So this is just a recap. So that was a 7-step that we follow from step 1, 2, and 3 all the way to 7. Okay, so assignment 2 and 3 are focused on step 1 and 5. Okay, 1 to 5. Oh, sorry, 1 to 5. So most of the contents in assessments really provide you with number 1, what is the user requirements, what's the problem. Okay, so that's what I spend quite a bit of time giving you, just enough so that you have number 1 start instead of you are kind of trying to make up the problem. And then, but what you still have to do is basically make sure that you get the step 2 and 3 different requirements, like suitable AR interface technology is already selected part of that, but you need to know what's a good size of why we use VR or AR for that application. You do need to provide justification for that, and then you have a little bit of a storyboard, okay, very quickly, and then you develop your Unity that you've been working on during your tutorials. Okay. So hopefully this gives you a sense of what is should be there. Should not just be looking at develop Unity and come back to that. So let me try to switch to next actual PowerPoint. Just give me a second. All right, so this is, you should see this. This is one of the version for the Wednesday onward tutorial student. All right, so when I say it's at step number 1, you can see here the museum maybe it's the best way is to do the full screen sharing so that I can compare both of them. Just give me a second there. All right, I think you should be able to see my screen there. Just All right, so you should see my full screen here. So this is side by side. Okay, on the right hand side of the slide I showed you before. Okay, so step one, identify the user requirements. Okay, so again, this is in lecture 3. You need to go and listen that to get a better understanding. So this why each of these exam scenario that you have to pick from is to allow you to focus your channel on follow the step. Okay, so the context here. Okay, I'm not sure you see my mouse cursor here, but each scenario here will have a context and we have a user requirement. User requirements here is either problem, limitation. So I give them, some of them I give you very specific, some of them I give you a kind of general guideline, general directions. So you have to pick something in there. But the context is generally is overall. What is this? Is not just museum, any museum. Like in the previous year, I tend to leave this kind of open end for interpretation. But in this case, I spend a bit of time trying to get them so that you don't have to use too much because imagination. You can just focus on what I provide you. Okay, remember assessment tasks 2 and 3 are really focused on learning the process and follow the step and understand it, so you don't have to worry about the creativity quite yet. And then that's when you assign task 4, when you do group project here, then you get a chance to really explore that. That one assignment 4 would not have any limitation to it. Okay, so there will not be a scenario for you. So you can come up with it from the step 1, from the context, from the user requirements, and then so on and so forth. Okay, so in this case, please understand each one of this case. So for VR here, I have a very good solid um, case that people are looking at it. Okay. For AR here, somewhat I provide a general direction of the view, okay, which you will find is very interesting to look at them. Some of the review, the link that I provide here should provide you a very good look and look at different things there. Okay. Right. So fast forward there. Okay. This part is I'm sure you can highlight here. So that this is where my cursor here is just the technical developments here. One of the things is that our project, you might design something and look at for something that relatively the scope, the scale is big. Okay. However, you don't actually have to develop the whole system. You don't have the time for that. And then this is not the purpose for that as well. So therefore, your design itself could be much larger, but your technical development will be contained to within the material that introduce or cover at least basic in the tutorial session. Okay. Having said that, it doesn't mean that you should just do what tutorial said. Remember, tutorial was aimed for baseline for everyone to achieve minimally. Okay. From at that point, you should spend time studying how to do other things that can be more advanced if that's more applicable. So I think that's a learning process of that. Okay. So make sure that you cover that part. 3D models here is not really a major focus of our unit. You will find Ron already put up reference on the Milo on the tutorial tab how to get the 3D models and use from mostly I will find that most of those very focused materials, character, you will get it from internet, what you can find. Okay, and then the standard of 3D assets like box, building, things like that, circle, sphere. I mean, you should be able to build that. We expect you to build that on your own. Just build from the Unity asset. Okay. So remember, just try to refer to the tutorials, materials that you have been covered in week 4. Okay. So any questions so far? It's the same, but it's a different scenario here. Okay. The phobia here, phobia, I leave it a little bit open. Okay, so because you could be come up with the different things. Okay, Um, so I just try to see if you can want to go inside that space. Now, the submission, I'll give you quite a details, and in the parenthesis here, I make a point so that it actually go back to where you reference in your lecture in weeks. So you can see here, the cover page is nothing there, and a description application. So this is a CIA1. I should get the CIA up for you. Okay, so you should see CIA on the right hand side. Can one person confirm to me that you actually see CIA on the right hand side? I swapped the window. Yep. Okay. Thank you, Josh. All right. So go back to CIA here. Okay. So you can see the CIA here. So one here is 30%. So that is completely your IO1. Okay. So you can look at that. But IO1 itself is sitting right in the section B here. Okay. Which is contain quite a lot of information there. Try to make sure that you understand there were two significant I'm looking for. One is significant of the application, the application you select to do, scenario you select to do in the context of your application you develop in the context of your scenario. Okay, so make sure of that. It's nothing to do with that interface yet. It's just what's so significant of that. Okay. So that's coincide with your step one. Okay, for step 2 and 3, okay, so that's it's sitting in the significant of the interface itself. Okay, so we're gonna do have to swap again. Okay, so you can see here, 2 and 3 here is about interface. So that's what sit inside with this one, the number 3 here, significant of interface in the context of application. So if you are familiar with this a little bit more, you realize actually it starts from a big picture, a much bigger general, and then it kind of cone in like a cone, but it's all the upside down cone. They get smaller and very more specific. Okay, and then you come to interaction design. So this is a criteria 2 on the CIA. Okay, so this one is talk about different components. This is sit inside step 4, which is right now it's called storyboard. But in the storyboard, you need to design scenario how people interact, and that is the key. Storyboard is just a mean to illustrate the point, but interaction is designed in that step. Okay, so it's very important here that must be at least one active interaction. Okay, I define active interaction here require a user to directly interact with application, like activate a button, interacting with 3 objects, change color, scale the object. So what not considered active interaction is that you're just walking around and nothing happened. You're just walking around in the scene. Yep. So you see different things, but nothing interact with you, and nothing, and you interact with nothing. So that would not be considered. So make sure you look after that components, as the CIAs are looking for that heavily. So that's just another 30% in this space. Okay, you can see there are different components that people were looking at. Unfortunately, the the different paragraph doesn't get cut off, so you can kind of have to make sense from all this bundle text. Okay. Okay, so the next thing here, the technical developments. Okay, so this is part of the report, but remember number 1 here at the very top, it's a software. Ron will cover today what sort of a build that you should do if you build on a Windows platform with a webcam, or you build with Mac OS in the platform. So essentially, you just need to pick in the Unity when you build it, instead of run in the edit mode. You just have to pick the platform in which you build into. And then for Oculus, for the Quest, it built into APK. So I think you will cover some of that. But this is, you can always ask us if you have questions. Okay, so that's what we ask for, is build that. Don't, the one that is actually going to be, you have to ship the whole project to us, which Ron will cover this week. It's one of the AR groups, one of the AR configuration, which is AR that actually running on webcam. Okay, that Vuforia we know is not compatible, so you cannot really build it in Vuforia in macOS or in Windows OS or Windows 10 because the camera won't access that. So in that case, uh, you just have to zip the whole project. That's what Ron will cover this week. For the other, if you go to the phone, if you go to the Oculus Quest, they all should be APK stuff. Okay, and if you go for the Oculus Rift S, so that should be a window build. Okay, all right. So hopefully, if you have any questions, just get to Ron or me. Okay. So, but in that case, number D here, it still require you to write a little bit, but this is not much of the heavy writing. It's 30% here. It's not really about this writing completely. It's about the project that you build, which is the number one software on the top. Okay. So, but this one is still want to write about information about the submit software, what software you use and things like that. A very short paragraph. Just give you a sense of, okay, what this is, what they used it. Okay. Don't need to go full detail, even though it says 30% here. Remember, 30%, most of them are really on the software that you submit because I'll be testing that. Okay. And as I mentioned before, the next thing, 3D models, that one is not much. Okay, so we only dedicated 10% because most likely you'll be just looking for that on 3D warehouse and things and just upload it. The one that you'll be marking for this one, if you're looking at the right hand side here, is really how it's fit within an application. Let's say you build a forest, you have you download a tree and things like that. So it has to fit within the context. It's not just a box in the middle thing and pretend to be something. You should be able to grab content from internet that fit with your in Unity with your application context. Okay, from the past, the student never really have a problem with that. And last session here, the reference. So anything that you use that you're not built by yourself, you need to cite them. Okay, so that's could be starting with idea in sections of interaction design or something like that that you might actually got it idea from someone else. So that might be something to be good to cite with. Okay, technical development. Okay, number D here. Item D here. If you actually download someone else's application, GitHub somewhere that you develop further, things like that, you definitely need to cite them. Okay. And then, of course, the 3D model, you definitely will be talking about it. It should have some application with a thumbnail. Okay. So this have some student has some question before, is that how the thumbnail is really just part of the report that, okay, I have a tree. So you have a thumbnail of a tree you build, and then you write about short description, the purpose of that tree and things like that. Very general. You don't have to do kind of very specific detail for all of them. So you should pick the feature. Let's say you have different type of tree. You just pick them and say, oh, there's a 3 different type of tree that I use for certain purpose. Okay. Of course, the scenario won't render to that. I just use that example so you get the idea. Okay. So the reference are different type. It depends. It's an article, it's a website, it's a software source, so 3D models. Where do you get them? Okay, you should have a link clearly that we can look. Okay, and what in red here, just make sure is that if we're not sure, if you have doubt, we reserve the right to ask you to resubmit your source code. Okay, let's say you're not cite anything in the reference session, so we want to look at them carefully, then that's what we will ask. Okay, but if you think this is reasonable, then we don't need to see the source code, except the people who build the Vuforia with webcam. You do need to submit the whole Unity project, which essentially has the source code in there. So hopefully this gave you a better understanding. So I will pause here a little bit to get you some. If you have any questions or anything, let me stop this one first. So any question? Oh, the text is a bit small. What text is that? Yeah, this is in the specs. Okay, if this what the page you're the page is referring to in specification. They're all PDF that from website. All right. All right. So let me pause this recording. So this we'll call it assignment 2, assessment task 2 specification.